host today, Joey Ricotta at Joey Knows Nothing, joined by Jake Banowski at baseball_booge. Jake, I think I got your last name right.
You did.
That's impressive. Yeah. I'm impressed with myself. But yeah, man, Jake here is with the Dingers podcast. Go follow at Dingers Pod on Twitter. Obviously, they are one of two of the Cubs official podcasts here at OnTap Sportsnet at ontapsportsnet.com. You can follow us at Cubbies on Tap. That's Cubbies on Tap. We are here to celebrate a winner, a Cubs victory, 2-0. It was the Stro Show. Once again, Jake, how the hell are you, my friend?
I'm good, man. It's a little chilly still up here in Madison, but able to walk the dog in shorts and a sweatshirt. And when you know there's a Friday 120 and you get a Stro encore show like you did today, it's tough to complain, man. How are you doing?
Great. I mean, yeah, it's tough to complain. I got off work at noon, and I was like, I was debating whether I should continue working or if I should just play some bets and watch some Cubs baseball. And I was like, I'm going to play some bets and watch some Cubs baseball. So
there you go.
That's what I did. And they came through for us. So me and B-Don definitely were on the Cubs money line today, as anyone who's a Cubs fan should be at all times. Don't gamble irresponsibly, but gamble on the Cubs all the time because they're going to win 162, even though they haven't won every game to this point. But Jake, like I said, Stroman was an animal. Kind of ran into some trouble there early on, as kind of can be the case. I remember having a conversation with Juice here at On Tap. We were in the bleachers opening day, and Juice, myself, and Tyler were talking about how, you get him through that first inning there, and he can kind of settle in, get back into a rhythm, and a couple of those off days, too, a little extra rest, maybe knocking off a little bit of the dust. How did you feel, Jake, about Stroman today?
I mean, so you kind of mentioned it getting into trouble. I mean, the big double play ball, I can't remember which inning that was, but big double play ball turned, getting him out of a jam. I listened. We were talking pre-show. I have Apple TV, but I listened to Pat and Ron. I was outside cleaning the car today, which was nice, very, very overdue. And so it's obviously easier to remember the innings and when things happen when you've got the visual cue of the TV show, the TV broadcast. But overall, I mean, he dominated today in what should end up being a very good, and I mean, it's already very underrated Rangers lineup. Going up and down, just throwing, like, Nathaniel Lowe had a great season last year. I really expect Seager to continue to. I mean, he hit over 30 homers last year, but I think his average will probably rise this year. You're going to get a good performance out of Marcus Semien. I mean, like, you could keep going. Josh Young is going to be one of the better young third basemen in the league. So for him to dominate that lineup how he did, coming off a start against the Brewers, who have really picked it up offensively as well, I think as Cubs fans, we've got to be ecstatic with what Stroman is showing us so far this season. He's definitely surpassed my expectations early on, and it's really great to see. I think he went 6 innings in both outings.
Yeah.
So for him to get a little bit of depth out of the starters early on in the season, which we haven't seen. We had a short outing from Tyone, we had a short outing from Wisniewski, and Smiley as well, only going 4 2/3. So getting that depth, striking guys out, striking out a great lineup, only giving up 2 hits. You feel great, and I don't know. That's kind of my big, all my big takeaways. Anything that I'm missing? What did you think?
You're not missing anything. I mean, the only thing I'll add to that is, it was just cool because it was his 200th start. So the fact that, and the Cubs Twitter actually tweeted it out, it was his 200th start for number 0, and he, another 6 solid innings, shutout baseball, just like opening day. He's looked great pitching at the friendly confines so far this year, man. I mean, I'm glad that the start got pushed back. That's how I feel. I think he
Yeah.
really enjoys pitching at Wrigley Field.
I think he feeds off the energy for sure. Yeah.
and
I
he,
wonder. No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, a lot of people talk about the sank are gonna be sanking, and it's definitely like working to his advantage using the infield. And like I actually add in there, I think his slider and slurve are very underrated pitches. Like those, the sank are gonna be sanking and utilizing that, but he's got some real put away stuff with that slider and with that slurve when he's really utilizing it well. But Jake, not to, we can kind of do this back and forth. We always kind of do that. I think we have so many thoughts in our head that we're always trying to rattle them off, but continue with the Stroman love.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting to me. I wonder. I hope it doesn't end up this way, but he's got an opt out after this season, and it's only 2 starts. Both at Wrigley, wind blowing in today, knocking stuff down. But you wonder if this continues, or even a fraction of this. Like, you obviously don't expect any starter to go 6 shutout every game. But say he finishes the season with like a low 3s, like a 3.1 ERA. Then you start to think like, okay, does he opt out because he's got a bigger payday out there? And then it opens up this whole can of worms, right? Of like, okay, what do we have with the minor league depth now? Caleb Killian did not have a good first start. I don't know if he's made a second start yet. I don't think he has. But he did not play well in his first start. I don't read into that too much yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably shouldn't be reading into too much about the opt-out for Stroman, but I think that this is going to end up being a big story that we'll be following all throughout the season. And we've talked about all offseason now into the season with how well Happ has played. I can't believe we'll get into it, but I know that he got an RBI double, but it sounded like the ball bounced off was it Arozarena's glove? Not Arozarena, Garcia's glove.
Yeah, Dallas Garcia. It was a very playable ball. I'll say that, but it was a tough play because Happ smoked it. Like he absolutely smoked it. And anytime you hit it to center, I feel like especially if it's like right at him, not that it was right at him, he had to go back on it. So it wasn't like it was one of those weird judgy plays, in my opinion, from a center fielder. But at the same time, I mean, he kind of gave that to him, even though Happ smoked it. So, I mean, hey, it's awesome they credit him with a double because well-deserved when he hit the ball that hard. But, yeah, I mean, he's playing phenomenal. Happ is absolutely killing it at the plate, and he looks like, hopefully he continues this all season because there's seasons where he normally starts out a little bit slower, or there have been seasons where he starts out slow and he finds it maybe halfway through. So, I mean, you bring up a great point though about the opt-out situation and potential.
I bring up Happ. The reason I brought up Happ too is because I was starting to say, we've been talking about the Cubs need to extend Ian Happ, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now you kind of wonder if there's going to be talks about Stroman, trying to tack on a few more years to the end of this contract, offer more. I don't know. I don't know how that works in restructuring a free agent deal, right? I don't think I can't think of a situation where that's happened. But if you keep getting, I mean, Stroman had a great season last year too when he was healthy. So if you keep getting, I don't really want to say like ace level production. I mean, these first 2 starts definitely, but let's say like a number 2 level production. Is that something that you look into? Like, if you're Jed, are you saying like, all right, Stro? I mean, how old? Like, while you talk about that, let me look up how old Stroman is.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something you have to consider, right? Like how many guys are going to give you legit number 2 caliber starting pitching? And like you said, I don't expect him to be, shut down all season long. Although I will say his whiff rate I mean, it's been phenomenal so far through 2 games. Like, he's actually pitching like a number one, even though he's just going the sixth inning so far. Maybe the walks and, a little bit early on the pitch count, maybe getting to him a little bit, but it is early. And I mean, I do expect him though to kind of go back down to that 3 point, maybe even if it's 3.1, that's phenomenal. Like, I'll take that from a pitcher all day long. Yeah, I think Scott says here 32 free agent year, he will be 34. So wait, how does that make sense? Oh, okay. Yeah, after that.
So his free agent season, he turns 34 at the beginning of that season because he turns 32 May 1st. Or is that right? Did I read that right? Yeah, May 1st.
So his actual, when he's a free agent, he'll be 34. That makes a lot of sense. I was reading it weird because I was thinking I was already considering him a free agent with the opt out, but yeah, that's
right.
I don't know, man. I think, like, if you're gonna tell me, it kind of depends how the Cubs are at the deadline too, because I think you have to consider if he is going to be a potential opt out candidate and pitching really high. Now this year becomes the year that you're questioning whether you should trade him or not at the deadline. Right. Last year really was I never wanted them to do that because I felt like they'd be selling low on him. But I don't know. What are you thinking here, Jake?
Yeah, I mean, I think you bring up a good point with the team's performance, as we approach the deadline. I think with how the offense is playing so far, and how the bullpen has looked overall, minus Julian Merriweather, I still believe that we can get some productive innings out of Merriweather. But if he's the worst pitcher in the bullpen, I mean, the bullpen's looking pretty damn good. But if all that is to say, like, I expect this team to have a winning record by the deadline. I think that's a fair expectation. Like, I don't think anybody on this team is playing. I mean, because Dansby took an 0 for today, I think, right?
Dansby, I don't know if he had a hit or not. I don't remember him getting a hit. Oh, maybe he did have one.
Did he end up with a hit?
Let me look.
The box score here.
He did not have a hit. He got on base with, I think it was a force out, I want to say.
So I bring that up because obviously he's not going to end up batting over 400 this season. He's batting 417 right now. So I don't really think anybody is playing over their heads. And I think we could still get better production out of Mancini. I think Mastroboni is going to prove to be a good bench piece, like a good, utility man. And we still don't have Seiya back. So
right.
The top of this lineup, 1 through 4-ish. Belly went 1 for 3 with an RBI today. You love to see that. I think my buddy, friend of the pod for Dingers, Ian Mahan, texted me. He said, "Hey, 4 straight games with an RBI for Bellinger." So that's great. So even though the slash line is not showing it yet, he's coming up in situations where it matters. So I think you should expect this team to be contenders for the division by the deadline. I think because, like I said, I still think that there's another level that this team can hit. I think the guys that are like playing above their heads right now, like Swanson and Happ, are going to come down a little bit, but I expect them to be like, 280 hitters probably. And then Mancini, I am Skokes comments. Am I the only one that doesn't like Mancini? I think it's just tough right now because he's not producing. But I mean, look at what he was doing in spring, right? Like he was a world beater in the spring. And I think maybe that set expectations a little bit too high for us, but Mancini is a really productive player. And I think that he settles into like a DH role when this roster like fully shakes out and Seiya is healthy. So to answer your question, or to speak to your point about trading Stroman at the deadline, like it makes total sense if this team has a losing record and, injuries could rack up. A lot of things could happen, right? A lot of things could break the wrong way. If you could trade him to a contender and get some more good pieces, like that's the restocking that this team needed to do with the last batch of of core players.
Right.
Like one of those guys, like Baez, should have been traded after his MVP runner-up season or something like that, you know? So I'm kind of rambling now, but what are your thoughts on this offense?
No, I mean, that's kind of where I'm thinking too. I mean, I like the point that you made about Mancini. I don't, am I the only one that hates Mancini or doesn't like Mancini? Like you pulled up from I Am Scocks, the comment there. I, I don't dislike Mancini. I think he's actually looked a lot better to me at the plate as far as the at-bats that he's having, except minus today. Like, he looks like he's starting to get more and more locked in. At least in that Red series, I was noticing that a little bit more, and it just wasn't falling for him. Like he wasn't, and it's kind of like that with Bellinger too. I mean, he hit another ball, at least one other ball today that was on the button that he didn't get a hit on. So
yeah. There was one to like right center field that the center fielder just flagged down. Yeah.
And the Cubs, they didn't even get their first hit until the fourth inning because, I mean, Eovaldi was on point for the most part today too. So, you brought up Mastroboni. I think Mastroboni, he's another guy that's had pretty good rips at the ball. He did have a hit today that was credited a hit because he hit it so hard at the third baseman and he, kind of bungled it. Or that was Josh Young, I believe, over there at third. But, I think Mastroboni is a solid in the right role. He's a solid bench bat. You can't rely on him to be playing every day. And I think that's the biggest problem that fans are having too while they're watching this team when he does struggle. Because you got him as a solid piece. Like his numbers were pretty solid when you got him from the Rays, at least what he did in the minors. It looked like, okay, you have a solid option there as a bench utility guy. He's not an outfielder. Like he can play outfield, but he's not actually an outfielder. Right. So that's the tough spot too. But offensively, I like what I'm seeing from most of the guys. I mean, Nico's starting to heat it up now. I think he's over. Yeah, he's hitting over 300 now all of a sudden, and he started a little bit slower. So if you get
from Scott here in the comments, he says Cubs top 4 batting average: Swanson 417, Happ 400, Horner 321. Wisdom 316. And I kind of, until Wisdom cools off or say it gets back, like I wouldn't hate seeing Wisdom. I think he batted 6th today.
Yep.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing Wisdom switch with Mancini. So then he comes in after Bellinger. I mean, 0-for-3 with 2 Ks today, but again, like you mentioned, Eovaldi's a good starter. Like he's put up good numbers. He's a guy that I think was loosely on the Cubs' radar this offseason. I didn't expect them to go after him, but I'm glad that Scott highlighted those guys because it's a running joke on Dingers. We always give Patrick Wisdom a hard time, but it's because like.
We were doing that for the longest time too, and I think Juice was like the leader of the Patrick Wisdom hate club. But Scott is like the biggest fan of.
We have Ian Mahan, for Dingers. He's the same. So like, it's just really tough, man. Like when you go from Chris Bryant to Patrick Wisdom, and even before Bryant, you had Aramis Ramirez. So it's like you've had good third basemen. I guess we had Luis Valbuena worked in there. Rest in peace, Valbuena. But Valbuena was a good kind of stopgap between those two guys. And so Wisdom, it's like I just want to see if Wisdom could bat like 260. He's a stud. Like that guy's a stud. If he drops his K rate below 30%, like there are these things that like don't seem to be asking too much of the guy to make the right adjustments or for him to be put in the lineup against the right pitchers. But yeah, I think I'd like to see Wisdom boosted up in the order a little bit because I right now believe in him to drive in those guys who are setting the table at the top of the lineup.
I'm the same way. I think you got that thumper. He has the most power in the lineup. Like there's no question about it. I mean, unless Edwin Rios. Even then, I think Wisdom still has the most power, but Rios has started obviously slow too. So, unlike Wisdom, but Yeah, I'd like to see that move too. I think right now, the way everybody is hitting, I think Wisdom should be up there in the lineup at like 4 or 5, not in that 7, 8, 6, 7, 8 type of spot. Because if you get these guys on base and he can thump them home, yeah, I mean, even if he hits 240 for me, like if he hits 240 and he hits 30 plus homers, 35 homers, with the power potential that he has, and we've seen. I'm still okay with that because it means that at least you're getting that from somewhere. Whether,
Right.
with Seiya Suzuki, we're hoping that he can put on more power this year or actually hit it in game power, like he didn't really do that much of last season or as much as we thought that he would. But it's kind of tough to predict because he's coming off of an injury. So, I would like Wisdom to be in there almost every day. What are your thoughts on? Not to go too deep down the rabbit hole, but like, what are your thoughts on the guys in the minors as far as the guys that everybody's begging for? Because every time we bring up these corner spots and we bring up the right field position or the guys that are on the bench that aren't hitting, the Madrigals, and I know you're a big Madrigal guy, the Mastrobonis, all these different guys, the question gets asked, right? When are you bringing up Morel? When are you bringing up Nelly V? Well, which, I mean, hello, I want Nelly V to let swim. I do want him called up. Or Matt Mervis, everybody. And I think with him, I'll just say it. I think, you want to give him as much time as, potentially needed. If you see holes in his swing, if they see some holes that could be exploited, give him the time necessary, even though he's raking. But Jake, what are your thoughts on kind of the whole situation of that and the way the rest of the roster is shaking out?
So I'll start by I guess shitting on my own shoes with Madrigal, because like I was really high on Madrigal. I still think Madrigal is a solid player, but I just don't think he fits in with this team. Like I think I had hopes that like he could hold it down at third base. He's shown so far that he can, but I just don't think he has a spot in this lineup right now. And I think it's probably going to stay that way. So I don't know. I wouldn't mind Madrigal being sent to AAA to play every day, show versatility at second and third, and then if he's hitting, see if you can trade him to somebody for anything, like anything. Take what you can get, because I think that guy deserves to be getting a starter's workload for a team until he really proves that he can't. I'm a firm believer in prospect pedigree. I know, Joey, you and I are big fantasy baseball guys, and like that's a big thing in the fantasy industry.
Mm-hmm.
Like Madrigal's hit at every level. I think he deserves the opportunity to play every day somewhere. It's just not going to be for the Cubs, and that's fine. But then looking at Velasquez and Morel, I think that Velasquez is probably a fourth outfielder type.
Sure,
and I think that it's easier to call him up and rotate him into the outfield than it is to call Morel up and rotate him around the infield and outfield. And you might be listening thinking like, oh, well, if you can rotate Morel around the infield and outfield, he's got more positions that he can float to, which is true. But I also think that Morel has a little bit more upside than Velasquez. He's a name that's been talked about in Cubs prospect circles for a while. I mean, like not necessarily as a top prospect, but as a guy that like has been on people's radar and like might have breakout potential. So after his season started, or I should say like his MLB career started last year with the way it started, I think he I think he should be really, really refined, like really make sure that this guy's approach at the plate is locked in before you bring him up to the MLB roster and expect a lot out of him. Last year, reading his Fangraphs profile, they said he could be a Chris Taylor type player. which if you don't know Chris Taylor, he's the Dodgers utility man who plays a lot of center field, second base, shortstop. And in his peak seasons, he was a really solid hitter, really solid offensive contributor. If you can get that out of Morel, you take it, 10
All
times
day.
out of 10.
Yeah.
But I think that he still needs the everyday at bats, and he's not going to get it at the MLB level right now. I think that I'd be like, and that's why I think I'd be a little bit more open to Velasquez coming up sooner, because I think he kind of is who he is. And I don't think his ceiling is as high as Morel's offensively. So I want to see Morel like play consistently well, cut down on the strikeouts, bat over 300, slug, 500 plus. And then when the window is right, then you call him up and you know that you can get Morel every day at bats, because I don't want to see him regress because he's not getting the consistent playing time. And I know, Joey, this is something that you were like, you alluded to this predicament in the pre-show. So what are your thoughts on these guys?
No, I actually really agree with all your points there, because I think that if you're going to bring one of these guys up, it probably should be Nelly V, because he's the lesser of the two, like you said, as far as potential goes. And with that said, now as we're talking it through, something also just came to my mind is like, with Seiya coming back so soon, it seems like he's going to be back here really soon. Maybe the Cubs just don't want to rock the boat. Maybe they don't want to rock the boat roster-wise until he's back, because you're also allowing Nelly V to get that playing time down there every day with Morel. So they're both kind of fine-tuning things. And if they bring him up, maybe they don't want to play the bring him up, send him down game with like Nelly V as well. So, I mean, it's really like, it's a rock and a hard place, because at the same time, on one hand, that these two guys could add massive value for your team, or a little bit better value than some of the other guys that are on the roster right now. But at the other hand, where do you put them? And that was one of my biggest gripes last year with Velasquez, for example. He wasn't getting the consistent playing time when they brought him up. And so even his struggles were magnified last year. And we saw him tear up Arizona fall leagues and tear up the minors, and he was slugging, and now he looks like he's tearing the cover off the ball, hitting dead center like Morel was, bombs to dead center at Iowa. And look, I go a little crazy, and most of the time it's sarcasm when I'm talking about Nelly V and like, let Nelly V swim and, all this stuff. But there's a little something to that. At least he's a qualified outfielder. He can play right field regularly if you need him to right now. So if Seiya Suzuki isn't as close as what it sounds like he is, I would say, hey, bring him up, no doubt. And I'd probably be up in arms about it and wanting him to be up there, or Morel. But like you said, he's not a one position guy, and he's not a main outfielder guy, even a corner type guy, really. So I don't know. It's a rock and a hard place for me. I think what the Cubs are doing, I have not really been screaming for the call-ups so far, and that might be my real, maybe hot take, I guess. I don't know. I've been a little bit against screaming for the call-ups because of the things we've alluded to, of getting the regular playing time and getting these guys in order. The last thing I want is for somebody to come up here and look at. It's not that we didn't expect them to do this in AAA, right? We all expected them. It wasn't like it's a surprise what they're doing in AAA. They've made it to the majors. They had success in the majors, at least a little bit. On Velasquez's case, a very small amount of success. But for Morel's case, a pretty good amount of success. We didn't expect him to go down there and struggle. That's not what this was about. It was for him to go down there and rake and absolutely do well, and then you get your call up, like when it's absolutely needed to, or it's like you've given us no choice now. Please come back, and you're going to play every day when the hole arrives. So I guess that's why I'm not screaming from the rooftops of look at these dudes killing it. And, we're so early in the season that anybody could kill it for a small sample. Is Patrick Wisdom going to hit 321 all season? You know what I'm saying? Like that's the point where I'm at with this whole like roster, like argument, or not even argument, but like just up in arms about like, if the Cubs are like really truly, if they've lost every game to this point, maybe I'd be freaking out a little bit, because that's just, I don't want to lose. I don't want them to lose, but they won today.
No. Yeah. And they won a close game against a good team. They out-hit 6-3 a good team against a good starting pitcher and a good bullpen. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. And you mentioned it in the case of Wisdom, any player can get off to a hot start. I mean, Hosmer 0 for 1 with 2 walks today, like that. I mean, the only 2 walks in the lineup. So he's showing the on-base skills that I know I talked about in preseason on Dingers. Like, he was projected to have the highest OBP on this Cubs team, the way that's set up right now. Yeah. And he's hit the ball well. I think the shift restrictions are playing to Hosmer's favor. I know I didn't see the play, but I was listening, and I know he made a great pick on a Dansby throw.
Oh, it was so sick, dude. So please go back and watch that.
I'll have to check that out. Yeah.
Dansby actually made a very nice play in the hole just to get it to him. But the pick at first was like, yep, that's exactly what we've been talking about. That's exactly what preseason. He's on this roster for first base defense. And in those moments, it's like, okay, yep, he's here.
It made me like kind of do like a little like fist pump, because I remember like when we got Hosmer, I tweeted something about like, we got him for his defense and whatever. And I had a ton of salty Padres fans in my mentions saying like, oh, you think Hosmer is good at defense? Like, you haven't been watching him play. And like, yeah, there are a lot of lowlights of his poor defense. I don't know what happened. I don't know, like, because he was a Gold Glover in Kansas City. I don't know if he like. You look at the defensive metrics, and they really aren't great. They kind
of fell off a little bit too when it did go to San Diego. But like, how do you just? It doesn't just evaporate. He's not that old,
right?
Like,
right, and it just looked like some of the plays that you see in these lowlights are like brutal. So for him to make the play that he did today, and it's not the first good pick that he's made this season.
Opening days, another great. Well, that's not the only one either, but yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, the point being, like, he's shown like the defense is there, presumably. Again, we're only 6 games into the season, but yeah, because he's playing good defense, because he's batting .278. I don't know what his on base percentage is right now, but and you make the argument, like, you can make the argument that Mervis needs more time in AAA just to make sure, like. The one thing that I don't want to see is, and I don't know if this is what hurt him, but like, I don't want to see another Albert Almora Jr. situation.
Oh, man.
Where a guy is brought up too soon. And Almora, like, I know that was like a talking point too when Almora was with the Cubs. He needs to get everyday at bats. And he did for an extended period get every day at bats. It's most likely because he's still in the league somewhere. I mean, he was with the Reds last season,
acting like he had to dive for balls that he didn't have to and making catches. But hey, he's still in the league. I feel bad for him. I really do. I'm not trying to talk shit about him.
No, but I mean, and that's exactly it. Like, I think he kind of got the short end of the stick. Like, just got called up too soon. I think it's especially in the case of a guy like Mervis, who isn't a Chris Bryant type prospect, who isn't a Jordan Walker level. I hate to use the Cardinals, but like, Jordan Walker was the best. I mean, arguably with like Gunnar Henderson, like those two guys were like 1 and 2, and Corbin Carroll. So those guys were like 1, 2, 3, like best offensive prospects. That's not what Matt Mervis is. Like, he's looked at really highly. I think he's a top 100 prospect, but he's not like this sure thing, no doubt offensive prospect. So you want to make sure, like, it's okay to call those guys up when they have, again, the pedigree that leads prospectors to believe that he is going to be a stud. because that he has, the college career, the minor league, time. He just broke out last season, Mervis did. So
I was gonna say he pushed himself into those rankings from one season.
Yeah. And
it.
you look at, there are other prospects too. Like I hate to use Gavin Lux because he's injured right now for the Dodgers. But Gavin Lux is a guy who had one phenomenal AAA season and everybody was all over him. And then he gets called up and he just didn't really produce. Mm-hmm. Now he's only 25 years old. So I think a lot of people were and the Dodgers believed in him. They let Trey Turner walk. But Lux was set up to be the starting shortstop for the Dodgers this season before he blew out his ACL. The point I'm making is just because there's one good minor league season under a player's belt doesn't mean they're ready yet. And I think it's good that Mancini's playing well right now. And I expect Hosmer flip them around. It's good that Hosmer's playing well right now.
Yeah.
And that Mancini, we have four first basemen, five potential first basemen.
Everybody's the first baseman.
Yeah. And I've made that argument too. Literally anybody can be put at first base. Like Kyle Schwarber's played first base. Mm-hmm. But give Mervis time. If all of our first base options at the major league level start to slump and the offense and the team is suffering because of it and Mervis is playing well, then you make the call up. But it's not time yet. It's not time. You're kind of lagging a little bit, unless my internet's bad. I don't know which one of us is. I'm gonna. I can't hear, and your video is kind of freezing.
You got me?
Yeah, I got you now. Oh, he just dropped. Okay, well, I'll hold on to it here for a sec. Yeah, I just really feel I don't know how to do this. So if you're watching live, sorry, here I am in two boxes. I don't know what the rush is basically what I'm getting at. I think that I think prospects deserve the time to develop so that they're given a fair shake when they get called up. If you've got a superstar and the team needs it and that superstar fills a hole, if you have the roster built in a way that you create. So for example, we'll take the Arizona Diamondbacks. I use the Arizona Diamondbacks because they have a really, really good flood of prospects coming in right now. And they've built their team to allow for those prospects to come up and contribute at the major league level. That's not the case for the Cubs right now. And I think that the Cubs have done it the right way. I think that as Joey's back, and I'm just going to finish this point here. I think that the Cubs did the right thing in creating essentially a soft landing spot for Mervis this season so that there weren't high expectations. The best way to call a prospect up is when the rest of the team is producing and there isn't pressure on that prospect.
Absolutely.
You saw it. I think that happened in 2016. You think specifically about Wilson Contreras' debut. We had Miguel Montero and David Ross already on the roster and producing as well as we needed them to. And then you put him in there. Obviously you got the rest of the Cubs offense that season playing to a really high level, but you bring up Wilson and he just slots right in. He's not expected to be the guy that carries the team on his shoulders right off the bat. And I just think that so far the way the Cubs offense is producing, that would not be the case for Mervis. But I think before the right moves were made this offseason, I think a lot of people had really sky-high expectations for Mervis to just come out and be a world beater. And that's not fair. I don't think that's really ever fair to expect of a prospect. There's enough pressure on them already to succeed for a myriad of reasons that we can't even begin to understand. So I think the front office has done the right thing. We're going to see Mervis at the major league level at some point this season. I do believe that, but I'm glad they're not trying to rush things along.
Could not agree more, and I apologize that my house just got struck by lightning or something.
Oh,
And
hey man,
no,
no, you're good.
it didn't really, but something
Okay, yeah, I was gonna
happened. I don't
say,
know
yeah,
what
I was
happened.
like,
The computers just get messed up. But no, man, I totally agree with what you're saying. Like the best situations to bring in the prospects and all that are teams that don't really need them to be contributors. And yeah, great points about who was brought up in which situations with like Contreras and stuff. I mean, I look at this like this too. Speaking of a guy who, and that's not to say that we're not high on Mervis. I think both of us here really
yeah,
want to see what Mervis can do, and we
totally.
look forward to that production. Hopefully, it's panning out. But all that said, I mean, look at another guy who maybe was called up too soon. A guy who's now playing shortstop for our team, our favorite team. Dansby Swanson, out of those four guys, maybe I'm wrong here, but I believe he played the fewest amount of games, if not the fewest, the second fewest amount of games in the minor leagues out of the four main shortstops that were free agents this year before his initial call up to the major leagues. And that's why, Jake, that's why I think he's emerging. He's emerging. He's about to take off this season and do what he's pretty much done the last couple of years, or last, maybe 2 out of the last 3
Yeah.
years, even though one was a shortened season, because the glove is so fucking good that now if he has the bat to boot, like if he has the bat carrying over, this guy was drafted number 1 overall. Like this guy was a top prospect, potentially to be, and obviously he's been an above average player in the league. But just looking at the plays that he makes on defense too, it just makes me like I want to run around my house. I want to do crazy things. I want to just like start shotgunning beers mid game, but then I can't. I'm going to spill all over the place, and that's not good inside the house. I'll get yelled at. But dude,
do it over the sink. Do it over the kitchen sink, and you're good.
Yeah, that's a problem. I got to crank the TV up. Nobody can hear anything else in the house then because I won't be by the TV. But you're right. What was I going to say though? Oh, dude, that glove to glove flip too.
Yeah,
like him and Horner, like it's just so effortlessly looks.
The chemistry is so obviously there. Yeah.
I love it.
I think like I talked about it when we signed Dansby, and I mentioned it on Dingers this week. I wasn't like the biggest fan of Dansby. I was like, he's got to prove it to me. Like I didn't think it was. I doubted Jed. I still think that like the defense obviously is there. The offense needs to continue. I think it can. I think you're right. And the reason why I feel that way is because I think we have like a Dansby Swanson twin, for lack of a better term, already on the roster in Ian Happ, another first-round draft pick who was probably called up a little too soon, played well in 2017, then struggled, obviously got sent down to AAA. And when he came back from AAA, he picked it up, and then obviously starting at the end of 2021 through last season and now so far in 2023, he's a stud. And like, I think they're the same age. I think Swanson and Happ are the same age. I don't know if they were in the same draft class.
Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah.
I can't remember if they were in the same draft class, but it just is. It was really interesting, especially last year, like seeing Dansby do what he was doing on the Braves while Happ was doing relatively the same thing. I mean, both Gold Glovers, both was Dansby an All-Star last year? I mean, with his performance, he had to have been an All-Star.
I feel like he was. Yeah. I mean, he should have been if he wasn't.
Yeah. So I mean, it just like, yeah, as you and I know, you hear prospect evaluators.
He was not.
Saying,
he was an All-Star last year. Sorry,
okay.
I saw 2023 first. Yeah.
No, you're good. You're good. But as we hear prospect evaluators say all the time, progress is not linear with prospects. So even though both these guys were highly touted prospects, some of them just like, there's a reason that you always hear people say like, oh, like 27 to 30, maybe 31, like that's a player's prime. Well, these guys are right in their prime right now, and they're showing it. And for them to be the center of the offense with Nico, I mean, I think Nico's going to totally bust out this year.
How many homers?
The offense.
Not to put you on the spot, I feel like he is too, and that's why I asked that question. And I wonder if you're thinking that way or just like just a great season.
No, I think a great season. Like we talked about it on Dingers a lot last season. Like Mitch is a firm believer that Nico can be like a Trey Turner light.
I love that comparison too. Well, I mean, I could see that.
Turner's bigger than Nico is. So it makes sense that he hits for more power. I think like Nico's best season, maybe you'll see like a 20 home run season, but I just really expect him to be really good at hitting the balls to the gaps. He's taking the ball the other way. And I think he's going to break 20 steals for sure this season. Like with the stolen base percentages already what they are this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you could see Nico average maybe like, I think it's fair to expect 14 home runs, low 20s stolen bases.
I could see it.
If you get that out of your leadoff guy, I mean, it's damn good.
I honestly think and that's something that we've talked about when we did our preseason predictions here at Cubs on Tap. We predicted, I think I was 30 plus stolen bases on Nico Hoerner.
And I think that's fair too. I think that's fair too.
Only just because of what you said, the rates going up, stolen base percentages, and the effectiveness when he steals. I mean, he when he goes, he pretty much makes it. And the homers, I mean, maybe he never turns into that dude that hits 25 type of homers, but if it's 15 to 20, if we're in that kind of range, I love that out of Nico Hoerner. Give me that with Gold Glove defense, with stolen bases. I mean, another thing too, just talking about just the way that the game kind of unfolded here today. I really and I kind of want to shift gears just a little bit. I love how the bullpen, we talked a little bit about the bullpen, but Mark Leiter Jr. has looked really good so far again this year, and he kind of carried that over from last season. And then Michael Fulmer, dude, that two-seam fastball was just beautiful on the inside corner to the lefties, a two-inning save. I was not expecting a two-inning save today, but these multi-inning guys, there's so many of them. Mark Leiter Jr. could have thrown more innings if they really wanted him to, especially with a couple off days. Now look how beautifully the rest of the bullpen is set up for the rest of the series.
I know. I was kind of surprised to see Fulmer get the two inning save coming off of 2 off days.
Yeah.
But with him being a former starter, that's the luxury that you have. The guy is
makes sense, right?
Multiple innings. Yeah. I'm reading right now The Cubs Way. Is that the Tom Verducci book? Right.
I believe so.
Yeah, about building the 2016 team. And I just read the spot about there's a part talking about when they acquired Chapman and how Chapman had never before the Cubs, I think, had never before the Cubs had a multi-inning save. He had to come in the 9th, with a clean inning. And obviously we know that narrative played out in the playoffs a little bit that year. But this is the luxury of Michael Fulmer. I saw someone tweet, I think Uncle Jeff on, I think that's his name, on Twitter, said something before Fulmer came out for the 9th, he said, okay, so is Alzolay coming in for the save today?
That's what I was who's it going to be? I think we were all wondering that. Yeah.
Right. So, but I mean, it just is that just goes to show the options, as you mentioned, that we have in this bullpen right now. I wasn't one that was I wasn't super excited about Mark Leiter Jr. because I was oh man, we've got so many good, intriguing young arms that I'd rather see them in the mix. But hey man, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Leave Leiter in there and let him shove for a couple innings at a time. Yeah,
Leiter Jr. was, I think he might have been one of my cuts. One of the guys I was willing to cut off this roster because of the guys that, and you guys talk about this a lot at Dingers the Dingers podcast, about the influx of arms that are coming through. And we've talked about it a lot here too, but you guys are real high on Cam Sanders and then there's Jeremiah Estrada and there's all these other guys. It was like, okay, who's going to get the cut here? You got Ryan Baraki and there's just so many different.
I really like. Yeah.
He's got good stuff too. And it's like, what are we doing with the bullpen? But hey, if you just have enough guys that are this talented and you can get the max out of, and that's what really having that inside knowledge of like your own team. That's where that comes into play. And I know there's been games where it feels like some mismanagement, and I've gotten on Ross more so than I have in past years. Like just certain situations, like the Drew Smiley thing, for example. I did not think he should have kept going in that game.
I know we tweeted about that. Yeah, we were talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and we don't have to get into that today, but there were signs that was like, this is not good for me. Like I didn't like the way it was looking. And in the lefty, what you were saying and saving the bullpen, you made a lot of strong points as to why he should have been left in there as well, but it didn't work out. For whatever reason though, that's like us as armchair analysts being at home, like talking, and these guys have the inside track. How is Mark Leiter Jr. really throwing in the bullpen? What are the pitches doing? Like, we're taping those. We're going to show you the analytics on the movement on the bullpen sessions. Now we can see some of that too with the StatCast data and all that. But hey, production's production. Same thing goes for Keegan Thompson. We talked about his velo being down. Everybody talked about it all preseason, spring training. So then now, what does he do? He's been pretty much lights out. Like it's So some of the stuff you take with a grain of salt, even on my own opinions on stuff. I have to look at it and be like, Joey knows nothing sometimes. Joey knows nothing.
That's why I had to check myself on the Madrigal stuff earlier in the episode. I think the reason why I was so high on Madrigal was because I was so low on the other third base options. I was like, all right, well, again, based on the pedigree, our listeners are probably sick of hearing me say that word. But based on the track record, we'll use that term instead. I thought Madrigal was the best option, despite him being, a light power bat at third base. We're seeing right now, like, I don't think it's tough with home runs being up around the league. Like, the Cubs not hitting home runs. I think today was the wind was obviously a factor.
Yeah. We knew there wasn't going to be much home runs today, I think, but to your point, they're not hitting the bombs.
And it's tough because, like, you look at the lineup, and if we're going to be saying this until he's not on the team anymore, if Bellinger can return to half his MVP form, then he's a power bat. If Wisdom can cut the strikeouts down or keep the contact rate, whatever, then he's obviously the biggest power bat in the lineup. I think Dansby's gonna. I think he could, again go 25 plus home runs. I also think Happ could go 25 plus home runs. There's a great piece out on The Athletic right now about the bat speed training that Happ did this offseason. Got me thinking, like, okay, how do I do that for my men's league? Not worth the time and effort because I only play one game a week and I'm not getting paid. But you think about, like, where can the power in this lineup come from? And I think that there are sources, but it's tough that there's not like an obvious power bat, Chris Bryant was an obvious power bat, obviously Schwarber, Baez, and to a lesser extent, Rizzo. Like, you knew Rizzo was good for close to 30 home runs a year. It's just not there right now. And I think that's the one thing that's kind of missing. And it'll be curious to see if the league adjusts, because the balls are flying more right now for one reason or another. And that different batches of baseballs get introduced mid-season. So that can be mind-numbing for us as fantasy baseball players.
We never know what we're supposed to expect.
Yeah, we were talking before the show that the pitching right now is just brutal to pinpoint. I mean, Lucas Giolito, let's do a live look at Giolito here. Giolito went 4 innings, 3 strikeouts. I believe gave up 7 earned runs, 12 hits to the Pirates, dude. To the Pirates.
Just horrible, man. I don't know what, like, completely just screwed my first 5 bet the Sox were winning, but not the point. Not the point, Jake.
No, I mean, hey, I obviously, we can talk. I can't. I live in Wisconsin, so I'm not placing any bets. But it just is.
Venmo me. Just Venmo me. I got you.
Yeah. We'll
maybe
talk at the table.
Yeah, we're not supposed to say that, I don't think. But
no, and it's not something that I shouldn't let myself get into it anyway. But I think it's going to be really interesting, not just to see what happens with the Cubs roster, but how the league-wide factors, not so much the new rules yet, but mainly the baseball, how that changes, if that changes, and how it affects the offense to pitching balance. I don't know. I think I like seeing more offensive output. I like seeing more home runs, but at the same time too, like, I guess what it comes down to is I was listening to one of the fantasy podcasts. I think we were talking about fantasy baseball today, the CBS podcast. If you're a fantasy baseball player, you're not listening to them, like, you're not serious about fantasy baseball.
Great work.
I think they were talking on one episode this week that what's happening, so there's a lower drag on the balls this season so far, which means that the ball travels further.
It sounds like a fishing pole. You got the lower drag on it. Like, you got to adjust it.
Right. So what they're saying is, like, okay, well, this is going to thin out the herd of, like, middle tier starting pitchers, so that, like, the elite starting pitchers, the elite bat missers, the elite, contact control guys, like, they're still going to be elite. But these guys who last season were succeeding because of a more, a dead-end baseball, thanks to the humidor or whatever the composition of the baseball, we're going to see that middle crop of pitchers kind of thin out a little bit. That's the theory so far, 6-7 games into the season for some teams. So I don't know, man. I mean, I'm really, just like with how Smiley pitched the other night, I think Smiley's going to even things out. I think he'll right the ship. I want to be able to root for that guy. He seems like a great dude. Seems like an easy guy to root for. But I'll be curious to see how the starting pitching for the Cubs continues throughout the season, and if and when a guy goes down, because it's almost inevitable, will Hendricks be ready to come back in and fill in a rotation spot, or are we going to have to backfill from the minors with somebody, and who will that be? So a lot of intriguing storylines early in the season, man. A lot of good stuff to be talking about, but I'm just happy baseball's back, dude. I'm happy we got the W today.
I'm happy we got the W as well. Fly the W. It is, I mean, that's how you start a weekend. That's how you start Easter weekend. But you know what? We're approaching the hour mark, and as we always usually do, we like to look ahead to the next game. So me and Jake can sit here forever. So anybody that's watching this, and if you've been watching this entire time, I see that there's been quite a few that have been just tuned in this entire time. We appreciate all the comments and stuff too. We got the regulars in here, like Scott Crawford, always holding it down. But man, I look ahead tomorrow. We got Justin Steele, looked excellent in his first outing against Martin Perez of the probable matchup tomorrow against the Rangers, which it is a 3:05 start time.
Yeah.
Interesting start time. That 3:05 is a little, hey, I'm not against it. I've got some stuff to do in the morning, and I don't have anything going on in the middle of the day, and then I got stuff at night. So this will be perfect.
I gotta sell my tickets because I can't make a 3:05. So if you want bleacher tickets, hit me up on Twitter. We'll make a deal.
I actually just sold mine too today. I sold mine for today, or for that game. Yeah. But what are your thoughts on this matchup? Perez was really good last year too. Surprisingly, kind of came out of nowhere as he's aging. Seems like he's getting better. I don't know what's happening here for Perez.
Yeah, so Perez is the guy that just pitches to weak contact. Not a huge strikeout guy. I think one of the things that could be telling this year is how the shift restriction, if he can still pitch to contact and limit hits without the shift. I obviously don't know the statistics off the top of my head of like how much he benefited from the shift last year, but that's, a narrative around baseball right now. A lot of these contact pitchers, how are they going to fare without being able to shift the high pull players? But I think Perez, I don't know how he did in his first outing off the top of my head, but I think it's not going to be an easy matchup, but I think with Steele on the bump with how he pitched his last outing, you got to feel good.
Yeah, Perez, I'll give you the stats on the first outing. 5 2/3, 7 Ks, 1.59 ERA. So I'm assuming he gave up one earned run. Yeah, one earned run, 8 hits though, and 3 walks. So he had some traffic to get out of, it sounds like. But
there must have been some double plays. Involved there. Yeah, 7 Ks is good though. Who did they play in that first game?
That is a good question. I don't see that right here. But game logs. We got the good handy. Okay, so they played the Phillies. The Phillies have started out the gate really rough, though. I mean, that's that's a toughie. What are your who are you looking forward to the most in the Cubs lineup tomorrow? Obviously, we're looking forward to Justin Steele. We expect him to be balls of steel tomorrow. And I mean, the guy's incredible. We could sit here and talk about Justin Steele an entire episode too, because we love him over here. Friend of the program, obviously. But what are your thoughts? Who needs to step up tomorrow for the Cubs offensively?
Martin Perez, a righty or a lefty? Do you have that?
Lefty.
Then I want to see Wiz turn it on. Assuming the wind is neutral or blowing out, I want to see Wiz put one over the wall. I also think too, we've seen Bellinger do pretty well against lefties in the past. So I don't know how the pitch mix for Perez works against or works to or against Bellinger's swing, but I think the gimme pick is honestly I'm just going to keep watching Bellinger and hope that we see a breakout. Who do you got?
I mean, we almost saw it today, we've seen him. Like I said, we talked about it earlier, him looking better at the plate. I think my pick will be, man, that's tough. I do want to go with a righty. I like the Wisdom pick too. I'm going to go with Horner. I think he's just starting to really get hot now. And even if he doesn't hit one out, I think he's probably hitting a couple gappers. Let's go with, I'll go with Horner tomorrow. But with that said, Jake, just a little over the hour mark. We're going to do this again, obviously. I think Sunday we're planning on having a show here at Cubs on Tap. You guys usually roll it out there, the Dingers podcast on Monday nights. So we hope everybody has a great Easter and, do some celebrating. It'd be nice to go into Easter and Easter Sunday. We're talking about a Cubs sweep.
I hope so, man.
That would be terrific. Jake, any kind of final thoughts before we go ahead and wrap this thing up?
That Cardinals drama, baby, I'm living for it right now. That Tyler O'Neill, Ollie Marmol drama. Give me more, baby. Tear that clubhouse apart.
Shambles, complete shambles. Yeah. Burn down Busch Stadium.
Yeah, that's what I got, man.
Just burn it down. I love it. Want to remind everybody we are presented by OnTap Sportsnet at ontapsportsnet.com on all social media platforms at OnTap Sportsnet. We are Cubbies on Tap, Cubbies on Tap, and Jake is Dingers, the Dingers podcast. We are the 2 official Cubs podcasts of OnTap Sports Network, and you're going to see our faces together throughout the season, as long as my computer doesn't crash and burn due to a tornado or something, because that could definitely happen. We've seen some crazy weather lately, but it's starting to get nicer. It looks like it's actually baseball weather now outside, so that's beautiful. But follow all the other Cubs on Tap members: Juice on Tap, Loose on Tap, Teddy Freddy 270, and at Nick _on Tap. Mitch he's at Dinger's Pod too, right? I forget what are
Dinger
the other
Cubs,
guys?
I think it's at Dinger Cubs. Oh God, Kevin and Jeff. They probably won't listen to this. I don't. I don't know what their handles are.
It's all good. Follow them too.
They don't tweet enough. They don't tweet enough. They need to tweet more. I keep telling them. But yeah, at Dinger Cubs, and then we're live 8:30 Monday nights. And if you've gotten this far, here's a little deal for you. I have the K shirts 15% off with the promo code Dingers Pod. So the link is in my bio or at the top of my profile. So that's what I'm wearing right here, the K shirt.
Yeah, I love those shirts, dude. Great job on
15% off. Thanks, man. Yeah, hope to see people wearing them at Wrigley this season.
Can I just go through to the link too. I mean, I should probably just do that. I was just about to say, can I just Venmo you? But I mean, I can use the link like a normal person.
Yeah, it'll get sent right to you. Yeah, it's they're printed on demand. Printing's really quick. It usually is a couple days before they get shipped out, and printed on nice Gildan tees. And so far, I've washed mine like a bunch of times already, and the prints are holding up really, really nicely. So excited.
There you go, man. It was cool to see you bring out the original at the Cubs convention.
We'll have the replicas out this summer at some point for sure. We got to figure out, my buddy and I that have the season tickets. We got to communicate how to get them back and forth between us. But if you want to hold K signs, they will be out there at some point this summer.
Absolutely. I'm going to try to be in attendance for whatever game you're pulling them out there. Let me know so I can make sure I get there.
There'll be multiple, but I'll tweet it out when it's happening.
There we go. With that said, we thank everybody for joining us. We have a little thing here we do at Cubs on Tap that we like to say. Jake, you've listened and watched this show enough, and you're a part of the show.
I got embarrassed last time. You got to start it for me because I know it's like, what does Ron say?
Well, so when Tyler's on here, we get like a nice little wrestling promo, which is just like through the roof. But let's go Cubbies. Wait, no, I just fucked it up too. Fuck the Cardinals and let's go Cubbies.
Let's go Cubbies.
See, and now